And we crank it up. And how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Which part of the wonderful San Francisco Bay Area? I'm so jealous. I look at your background going, she looks at out of this view every single day. It's just so jealous.
Yeah, Sierra Ventures, we are in San Mateo, so in the peninsula in the Bay Area. And if you squint in the background, you can see San Francisco. So I lived in
I'm
San Francisco
old.
for
I'm
over
old.
a
My eyes are bad. I can't squint that much. But it's good to have you on board. Give us a 2-minute background about just how you got to Sierra Ventures. You've had both an agency background, consulting background. You've done a lot of go-to-market and marketing. Walk us through the 2-minute tour of Anne's career trajectory. I don't want to know the point in time. I want to know the career arc. A lot of the
decade.
people that listen to us also want to know, how did she get there? She's successful. How the hell did she get? She didn't just wake up and become Sierra Ventures and everything else.
Yeah, so I actually started my career in the entertainment industry. I started at Paramount Pictures in Hollywood, pairing big brands with entertainment properties and doing partnerships and learning kind of the fundamentals of marketing. Knew I wanted to get into tech, moved up to the Bay Area, worked at Sony PlayStation doing something similar. And once I got up here, was living in San Francisco, I just caught the startup bug. And from then on, went to go work at a series of startups, started as an SDR at one and quickly moved on, realized I need to go learn some fundamental skills so I don't have to do this my whole career. So continued in the startup world just to raise my hand and hey, you need help with this, you need help with that, I'll do it, and learned skills throughout the process till I was leading teams. Um, which I got to do for over a decade in the marketing partnerships, business development, even sometimes on the sales front too. And so did some B2C, transition to B2B, spent the latter part of my career in the SaaS world. And at that point, yeah, along the way, I did a lot of like side hustles as building a little consulting agency, did it full time for a little bit. And got to understand kind of the world of agencies from both freelance to throughout my career working with both agencies and consultants. Got to venture capital. One of the things I love about working in VC is for someone who's intellectually curious, it is the greatest job ever.
Yes, it
Every
is.
day I get, every day I get to learn.
And you
And
meet with some of the smartest people who are willing and more than happy to teach you because it is in their best interest for you to know better.
yeah, absolutely. And it's constant learning. And so part of my role as CMO at Sierra Ventures is working with our portfolio companies, helping them on go-to-market strategy, getting to those key inflection points. Part of my role is also sitting on the investment team, focused on driving more deal flow into our pipeline and then brand of our firm overall. So it's a fun, every day is different. It's a great area to be if you love the constant context switching and just getting to meet a tremendous people along the way. And Sierra Ventures, we're a 40-year-old firm, but it's had two distinct chapters. So I know you know Sierra from chapter one. Little over 10 years ago, Mark, Ben, and Tim, our three managing partners, took over the firm.
Yeah.
And from that point on, we've raised fund 10, 11, 12, and 13, which is our latest fund, $270 million early stage fund, focused on B2B and those companies that are selling into the enterprise.
Yeah, I almost date myself because I met David Schwab at the Sierra Ventures office over in Sand Hill. I think he was maybe I think a couple of buildings away from from Sequoia. I had come to meet Deg Leone and had one meeting with Don Valentine, the late Don Valentine. And for some reason, I was walking out and David was walking by. That's when I got the chance to be able to talk to him. But listen, here's the interesting part. 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with, I don't know if you know her, Michelle. Michelle was she was doing your equivalent work at Andreessen Horowitz, Michelle Griffin. Does that name ring a bell?
I don't know her personally,
I'll
no,
connect
but
you guys. You'll have a ton of fun because she did the same thing for Andreessen Horowitz, and now she's doing the same thing that you're doing or you were doing. She's branching off and starting her own consulting outfit in the go-to-market side called Premier GTM. So I'll connect you guys via email. But let's talk about three things in this podcast. First question: what sparked you and I to talk was a LinkedIn post that you put about a week ago now. Then I connected back and I said, "Hey, I want you to talk. Want you." So the post was about how the new agency is going to look like, or what does agency mean? There are so many people and so many AI solutions that are changing go-to-market. What does the agency of the future look like according to you? And then we'll work backwards into, okay, what does that mean in terms of just the different tools? Life is so much going to, like, the go-to-market is going to be dramatically different, but walk us through your thesis on what's the go-to-market of the future.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. So on the VC side, we're investing early stage. And so the thesis has been, then and the buzz in Silicon Valley has been agencies are about to die, right? Because the AI tools of the future are pretty much going to kill all the agencies. And my take was, I don't know exactly what the future of agency, these AI tools are just, it's mind blowing what we're able to do and the amount of time that we're able to be that's able to be saved. So in my role, I sit back and, obviously if you say the word agency, that could be one person, two people, it can be the publicists of or, these omnicom
The complete
massive
spectrum.
that exist. So there's a massive spectrum there. But when we talk about, at least in the smaller agency realm, um, there's something that's really interesting that's happening. And my post was about the fact that in the short term, I believe this is going to be the best time for agencies. And the reason being that they have all these tools to leverage and use. Now, of course there's adoption and someone like myself is trying out new tools every single day. But even if you are that type of person, you have to become somewhat of experts in them. And because these tools will only work as well as you know how to make them work. So whether it's video creation tools or podcasting AI tools, or even just, using the large models to help you write, there's this moment where yes, you could be good at all of them, but that there's agencies and that these freelancers can be, these supreme experts, and now they can take on these tasks at companies or that companies hire them for and do them instead of in doing them in weeks, do them in minutes, do them in, less than an hour. Like that is absolutely incredible. And so I think it's all about right now the people who especially at the freelance consultants, small agencies that are leveraging these tools to just be faster, stronger, better than the competition. And I do think the pricing arbitrage hasn't quite, I think they're still able to charge the same pricing that they were charged like 2 years ago, even though they are able to do the work in a fraction of the time. So that was the genesis of the post as I saw it. Um, like I said, I'm in there using a lot of different tools, and part of my job is just being in there and testing what's the latest and greatest. But the biggest thing is a lot of these tools still struggle with UX, UI,
Mhm.
the tutorials, and we aren't at the place where you can just jump in and upload a video and it automatically makes it perfect. You've got to know understand the nuances to get really good. And that's where I think these freelancers, especially those that are becoming the evangelists and experts of the tools, have this opportunity in the short term.
Let me ask you something about the rule of thumb we used to have, and I'm dating myself, so take it with a grain of salt. The rule of thumb we used to have is that you want to be at least between $2 million to $5 million per employee in a software company on average. Of
Mhm.
course, there are bigger companies like Facebook and Meta that do a lot more, but let's not go there. They have efficiency of scale. But in a mid-sized software company, roughly about 100 to about 500 people, that's the rule of thumb I used to have. When I used to go to Sand Hill Road, raise money a couple of different times, they were like, show me how you can get there. Now, with agency, you could get there. You could get to about $1 million, $2 million per employee, especially if you have so the agency of the future. So if you know, the way I think about it is 5 years ago, the agency that had the full service agency had one SE person, had one video person, had one copywriter, blah, blah, blah. The agency of the future might be I'm an expert on video and I do full stack video. I'm an
Yeah.
expert on content and I do full stack content. I'm an expert on podcasts and I do full stack. It's not just I produce it, then I got to give it to somebody who distributes it, then I got to give it to somebody who optimizes it. No, no, no. With these tools, I'm full stack. Is that a good metaphor to keep in mind. You can actually be as productive per employee in an agency as you can in a software company, the traditional software company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think back to when I kind of spun up an agency with a good friend of mine, just to kind of take advantage of the latest tech tools that were out there then that others weren't, and doing some of the stuff like I used to build out ESP's email service provider,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and
Like
help.
Active Campaign and
Yeah,
even
just
more
all
back in the day.
the stuff that was unfun that no one really wanted to learn how to do, but needed to do right. Um, and I look, having to hire someone to help me kind of do just because of the tedious task of that was so manual back then. And now, yeah, you can spin it up and do it yourself. And when you talk about like content creation, I think the tools are so interesting. We invested in a company, excuse me, called Podcastle, and it is, now that I've played around with it more and more, it makes it so easy to produce a podcast where before I had to, hire someone to help me take out the ums and the filler words and the screw ups that are, occasionally happen. And now you can do that with a couple clicks. You can add your music, you can all do it all right there. Also doing video editing and stuff like that. And before we were hiring out for all of that. I mean, even look at some of the tools that aren't in this like latest crop of AI, like the Canvas of the world, and how easy they've made it to not have to constantly hire a designer to build stuff out. So I think that there is this opportunity and again, I keep saying short term because the way that AI is evolving, it's just everything is happening so fast. We're using the models we're using today. I think the quote is that they're the worst models we'll ever use because things are just continuing to get better on a day by day basis. So with that, it's hard to kind of look into the future and see that like this wouldn't be able to be automated and be very easy. But as I mentioned before, right now, to leverage these tools, you still have to have some investment. And I think at the company-wide level, we have a CXO advisory board, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So Fortune 1000 CIO,
Right.
CTOs, some CMOs as well. And when we talk to them and, they're all implementing AI, and it's like, where do you start? What are the tools that you start to really leverage? And I think that that becomes interesting because of this new crop of AI tools that will be available, that are available today. And every day someone's launching something new of that, will these teams be experts in every single field where they could be leveraging AI? No, that's going to take some time. But so that's where like the freelancers, the agencies, the consultants probably can still, make their living and do and make a tremendous amount by helping fill those gaps. Another interesting trend I've seen is some of these consultants are also playing the role of educators. So
Mm-hmm.
you look at something like Clay. Clay is an extremely powerful tool. And with
Extremely
Clay,
complicated as well.
yeah, and it's not intuitive when you jump in. I mean, you jump in and you could do some stuff, but you can't do anything super well. So now there's this crop of evangelists that are out there that are they're, the ones, the consultants that can help you actually teach you and your team how to use it. Like things like that, I think are going to continue to expand as we think about this like next level of ecosystem marketing. And so brands need to think about this as they're expanding, especially this new crop of AI tools that are continuing to pop up and change the way that we work and operate. Having these experts out there that may not be on payroll, but have an opportunity to get paid quite a bit by the companies that want to leverage and adapt their tools. So I think that's kind of some interesting like workings. And again, I don't know how long that will last in this AI wave. When will it become easy? The other pieces, especially at the big firms, which I
Mhm.
wasn't initially talking as much about, but I talked to an expert friend of mine who's been at a number of the larger agencies, and that role is all about strategy at the core.
Right.
So I think to your point, those teams are going to be able to get a lot smaller. And they're still going to run strategy because that still will
You can't
be,
outsource that.
yeah, that is a very hard thing to outsource. You can build a strategy document with AI really well right now, and you can do idea generation, but to really flesh out the strategy, I think it still has that human in the loop. But all the stuff, that the lower levels and the entry level people were doing, a lot of that it will be, naturally automated with AI.
Let me ask you a different question, just on the same lines though. Now, what is surprising to me, I have a list of about 400 or 500 AI startups that I track just to keep track of what they're saying, messaging, what they're saying on their website, etc. The number of people with do it for me option on their pricing page is just going higher and higher, not reducing. So, yes, they have a beautiful pricing page that says you pay by outcome or you pay by usage, whatever they want to do. But there's always a DIFM offering, which is like, do it for me. Even
Mm,
something as simple. I don't know if you've heard of a company called Relay. There's a bunch of these that are agent for you type of a thing. We will read all your email newsletters, give you a summary. We will N8N. You heard of N8N, I'm assuming, right? N8N is a workflow automation tool. It's an open source tool, but I use it extensively. I've completely automated the process of taking. I used to have four people, just like what you said. I'm just repeating what you said. Four people 2 years ago taking my podcast. I would record it to the cloud. They would then download it, add the filler, do this, do that, do the whole thing, push it to it. Whole thing is automated to YouTube. I don't need anybody anymore. I did the whole automation myself, right? My question just on this area is, okay, so we're doing a lot of this automation. It seems to make a lot of sense. A lot of this is very helpful, but why are more people having do it for me options if apparently their tool is so good that you can do
yeah.
it yourself?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple things at play. So when I look at companies, even companies that were built before 2020,
Yeah.
pre really ChatGTP coming out and really starting to make waves. Um, so those companies are humming along, and we have some in our portfolio that are doing great,
Yeah.
but they're still maybe not leveraging as much AI as they could. And why? Because I've worked at a startups, the majority of my career. When you're at a startup, it is a constant fire drill. You are just moving, anything quarter after quarter. New quarter starts, you got a new goal to hit, and you just, it's a ton of time, effort, and stress just to do that. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, now you got to go use, 10 new AI tools. you the it is so challenging to stop your current, hey, I've always been on HubSpot and I've used Gong
Yeah.
and here's the standard tools that I've always used. I've used them for years. I'm very good at. And now I got to go look at some new AI whatever. And I think that's a challenge. There really is no free time in startup life. For anyone, especially who's been on the executive track at a startup, you are going nonstop. There were
Yeah.
no vacations. There was no, free weekends where you couldn't, watch your pipeline or see what's coming in. So I think that's one of the challenges is that these companies want to adopt AI, but they need the hand holding to get there. They need that little bit of concierge service to get there. And I think in the enterprise, it's even more so. You might
I think
have,
you hit the nail on the head when you use the right word. It's concierge. I don't see the do it for me type of thing. I
yeah.
constantly see the word concierge service. We will make it happen for you. I see that a lot. Now you're ringing the bells for me.
Yeah, and I think that when you think about, even something like the enterprise, that capability to do it, you could all these tools, you can jump in and do it pretty, do okay job. But when you're in the enterprise, when you're even mid-market, okay is not good. Okay can mess up your whole pipeline, mess up everything that you've built in the last year, or several years. So okay is not good enough. You got to do it exceptionally well, better than what you're doing today. Otherwise, it doesn't really
Why
matter.
bother? Yeah, why bother?
So I think to do that, a lot of it is in that implementation and setup and having that white glove service for those bigger companies really does matter. I've even seen a company, as I was mentioning with products such as Clay and others that if you have someone come in and build it all out for you, give them the keys and let them drive, their success is vastly different than if they just go in there, use their free credits, can't figure it out. So, um,
And also the impact, right? That's what I'm seeing a lot of. It comes back to the point you just made. Agencies that have impact to the bottom line, to the top line, whatever it is, will be the ones, as opposed to previously, you could get away by saying, I'm going to create content for you. I'm going to do some inbound marketing. I'm going to check some MQLs. I'm going to check some numbers. They're like, no, 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 that's all 2022 and before. If
yeah.
you're not driving revenue, don't bother me.
Well, we've even heard some companies think about the idea of like not necessarily branding it this way, but like the AIs are of having someone who is focused on looking
Adopting
at what
new
are the
way.
tools out there and analyzing what are the tools we're using, what should we not be using, what should we be, investing in. I think the idea of taking a startup or any company that's doing tremendously well and like just throwing a bunch of tools to do better, that doesn't always work. We should always be testing and seeing, but you don't want to throw people off completely, especially when you have that momentum and traction, because that is so hard to get in the first place. So you have to build, and I think for founders, you have to build that culture of curiosity and have, you mentioned Cursor and obviously all the tools on the engineering side, like there's a reason, their strategies were bottoms up because they were able to build so much momentum by just finding
Right.
engineers that wanted to test this out themselves before going to the CTO or head of engineering to get everything approved. I think that there's a lot of tools that have really worked with that go-to-market motion. But still, I mean, even, you have more of an engineering background than I do. I do not have any. So, but when I talk to, constantly talking to founders and friends that are CTOs, um, there's still a lot of, bugs that are created and tech debt that's created from these tools. I think of it in very layman terms. I'd mentioned email marketing back in the day and the idea of like a WYSIWYG that was created where, you tell it to do one thing and it creates this like 7 paragraphs of the code garbage that, gets your email sent to spam. So we make it look really easy, but we don't yet know like how many problems we're creating with these different technologies. So I think there is something there where there's, at least for the companies that are out of that early kind of hackish startup phase and emerging into mid-market, where they've really got to be cautious on adopting without really thinking through like, is the output as good as it says it is? And that's where I think that they're having a little hand holding in this time period where maybe the UI or UX is not up to snuff, or maybe there is just, that you need that extra hand holding in the short term. Um, yeah, that's where I think it can be pretty interesting to get started. But yeah, how long that lasts, when do we
Nobody
get
knows.
to a place that we don't know yet.
This was awesome, man. Thank you so much. I know we're at the hour. I wanted to make sure that I was going to give you the 1 o'clock time that you had to go head out for something else. I'm going to have you back again, hopefully in a couple of months. I'm definitely going to introduce you to a couple of people that I've mentioned. And I said I was going to part you with one last thing, right? You were just talking about it before. We used to pay about $300 a month or $450 a month to HubSpot. Uh, did that for about a year and a half, got rid of it completely, replaced it with me sitting down and building and own just the 17 features I needed in CRM for every company. So together, all the companies used to spend roughly, some of them used to spend $400, some of them used to spend 300, about six companies out of the nine got rid of it for all of them. So we save, and you're now using a $20 subscription that I do with Cursor, built the CRM that I think that everybody needed. Only 17 to 20 features, doesn't do a lot of things, but it does only the thing that I wanted to do and what I want them to be able to use on. Completely automated, syncs into their Gmail, picks it up and puts in this very little manual email entry work that needs to get done. But yeah, saved about $4,800 a month with the $20 subscription.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love that because this is going to, CRM's its own beast that we could have a whole nother conversation on that because I spent a good 4 years in the CRM world. But yeah, we're opening so many doors and accelerating founders to really go out and build and not have as much, burden on needing to raise a ton of money to do it. So I'm super bullish clearly on the future and what the next crop of tools will be able to do to propel us forward.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks so much. I appreciate your time.